Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Monday, February 13th, 2017 edition of VR News. Going to start with an application for the PlayStation VR called Lens. And this application allows you to view 360-degree content in PlayStation on your PlayStation VR headset. If you're thinking, Epix, this sounds pretty damn familiar, yeah, you're not wrong. 2 weeks ago, just a little over 2 weeks ago, we announced that YouTube was launching for PlayStation VR. In fact, it has launched. And of course, they offer 360-degree content. And that's kind of where these guys come in. A couple of months ago, we reported a PC company that went out of business. This was basically their model, but on the PC side of things, they burnt through their funding and ended up with a model that just wasn't sustainable. Nor did they have anything that set them apart, really set them apart. And if you're going to be the Netflix to a Blockbuster, you got to have something that sets you apart. I spent a few minutes with the Lens app, and I personally didn't see it. And maybe it's still coming, to be fair. And further to that, I'm sure they developed this at a time where they thought Sony's market was ripe for the picking. There's nothing there that allows you to play 360. Again, the problem is, though, they go beyond just being a viewer. They're offering content. How are they going to get content? How are they going to get people interested to the kind of volume and quality you can get from YouTube 360? That's my concern. Is this another company we're going to talk about in 2 months that couldn't sustain itself? I hope not. I hope these guys make it. Just from where I'm sitting, it doesn't look too good at this point in time because I haven't seen a differentiator. Next news story. This one's interesting. It involves music and Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. There was an interview Upload VR had with the person who composed the music. His name is Michael Levine. What's interesting about how he came up with the music, because it's the old Go Tell Aunt Rhody, but done in a really dark and macabre way. Well, his background is really interesting, and it explains it a little bit. He was born in Tokyo to American parents and remembered a children's song from Japan called Masundi or Musunde, which basically has the same melody as Go Tell Aunt Rhody. So that's kind of where that came from. And then, of course, the way he's twisted the lyrics where everybody is dead in it. I mean, he's basically created a classic theme song. And that is something that I think needs to be done more often in VR. I'm an example, and I'm sure many of you are examples. It doesn't matter if you're console or PC or both. We can all probably pick games and either know the music we were listening to at that time because maybe we had it playing in the background, or the game's music itself was so good. Examples of that are some of the Final Fantasy soundtracks, or, there's so many on the console side. Absolutely. Especially from JRPGs. Well, on the CRPG side, there is as well. The Ultima series. I mean, there's Elder Scrolls, some damn good music out there. Music is just very powerful when it comes to evoking nostalgia or remembering things based on music. Like, that tie in our brain is huge, and it's been a part of humanity forever. Virtual reality devs, they could do a lot using music, a lot more than they're doing. So hopefully, we kind of see a resurgence, because the last few years, and maybe you guys think different, but to me, music it's just kind of been taken for granted. I mean, we don't even have music cards for PCs anymore. I know they sell them, but they don't market anymore. It's not a special thing. Music for a game is often just like an afterthought. Sometimes I'm playing games and it's not even appropriate to what I'm playing. It's like no thought was put behind this. So hopefully we kind of see a renaissance in that, because the audio is so important. The mood that it can create. Again, the Go Tell Aunt Rhody. Just what a perfect song that was to twist and make dark, because it's associated with a friendly rhyming jingle. So very cool. Definitely food for thought. Next news story concerns Valve, Gabe Newell and company. So a lot of the senior management, including Gabe himself, have admitted, and this is their wording, not mine, quote unquote, that childish Valve employees have been egging on the Half-Life 3 rumors. So there's a screenshot circulating, and this ties into the VR games that they're working on. There's a screenshot that apparently somebody blew up with a lot of time on their hands. They found a Half-Life 3 logo, fictitious apparently, or is it? And that's where I think it could be genius, or it could just literally be, please let this die, and our employees, some of them aren't letting it die. What I mean by the ingenious part is, maybe this is all part of the marketing, right? Be very vague about the VR games that you're releasing. Try to say they're nothing to do with Half-Life. You want to temper, keep people excited, but not in that direction. You could write a script for that being a possibility. Or, as a company, they just could be sick to death with Half-Life. They want nothing more to do with it, and they want to move on. And the VR that they're doing has nothing to do with that. Time will tell, but interesting. Although this next story, to me, much more interesting. This is a little more science heavy. It involves researchers at Stanford. I think it was last week I talked about that magic 20 to 30 minute mark that I've noticed some people hit. I'm not one of them. Many of you might not be one of them, but many of you may be or know people that are. It's hitting that 20 to 30 minute mark in VR, but not necessarily being motion sick. Just this kind of general malaise, this feeling of not being well. Well, these researchers at Stanford, they have a theory on exactly that. So what they say is it's not always motion sickness. It can also just be a general malaise. Well, we just said that. Now, the research that they did has been published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which is a peer-reviewed journal. And their theory is that a person's vision acuity can have something to do with that 20 to 30 minute marker. So what the researchers are developing is a type of VR display that adapts to differences in how we see, depending on whether we need glasses or how old we are. This technology could reduce headaches and or nausea or that general malaise caused by existing VR headsets. And even if you have really good eyesight, like my vision acuity, even though our sample size is 2, Exity hit the 20-30 minute mark, he doesn't have good eyesight. It's okay, but it's not great. Mine is really good, and I don't get that. That's way too small of a sample size to draw conclusions with, right? But that's why I found this so interesting, because it does tie into what we've discussed here on the channel. So they've got a couple of unique ways to go about that. And one of the researchers, he's a PhD student in electrical engineering. His name is Nitish Padmanabhan. And he said the following: you might not know exactly why something is wrong. This is referring to the 20-30 minute mark. We think it's going to be a negative thing for people as they start to have longer and better VR content. So what he and the other researchers are doing are testing hardware and software fixes designed to change the focal plane of a VR display. And they're calling it adaptive focus technology. So they've got 2 different hardware options for this to carry this out. The first is a focus tunable liquid lens. And this one sounded really damn neat. You twist the dial and that squeezes liquid lenses inside the headset to change the display, even though the lens itself remains in place. The other option involves mechanically moving the display screen back or forth, like adjusting a pair of binoculars. And it also incorporates eye tracking to determine where on the screen the user is looking. And it can also account for whether a person is nearsighted or farsighted, but as of yet cannot correct for another vision issue called astigmatism. So with these displays, VR users wouldn't need glasses or contacts to have a good experience. And this last quote sums up why this is important. Because one of the issues VR has had with this public acceptance and why so many of us wish sales were much stronger than they are probably has something to do with this statement. At some level, I can't help but think that. And the quote is, it's important because people who are nearsighted, farsighted, or presbyopic, those three groups alone account for more than 50% of the US population. That's huge. Now, obviously not all of them have tested, but I'm sure there are a lot of people with vision issues that are getting these side effects or the motion sickness. There's a lot of these different factors that just don't make it enjoyable. And we've got to find solutions. They're working on the motion sickness. And thankfully, based on this article, they're working on things not related to motion sickness, but things that most of us know exist. We just couldn't put our thumb on it. So very, very cool. Last story, a VR weather add-on that lets you feel the sun and the wind, i.e. the environment. I chuckled when I read this because some of you jokingly made mention of exactly what these guys are doing in comments months back on videos. So what this group has done, and they're working out of the National University of Singapore, the lead person working on that, Nimesha Ranasinghe, is working towards the ultimate VR experience that creates all of this. And there's two components. So first of all, they're calling it ambiotherm. The first component is a wind module. Now get this, that ties in directly. It contains two fans that clip on to the bottom of the headset, which is exactly what some of you mentioned. Just have fans. A lot of us were talking about the perspiration, right? Sweat and fogging up. But some of you also mentioned how cool that would be for cockpit games where maybe you're in a convertible and the roof is down in GTA 5. It would create that sensation, right? So as they say, they can simulate wind blowing in your face, for example, as you ski down a mountain. The second has to do with temperature. It's a temperature module. It attaches to the back of the neck. So if you're walking through a virtual desert, they can simulate the harsh sun beating down on you. And here's the kicker on why this finding on the back of the neck was so important. So in previous experience, Ranasinghe and his team found that if heat is gradually applied to the neck, it feels like the whole body is experiencing a different temperature. Similarly, wind passing the throat can give the impression of standing somewhere windy, i.e. if you and a buddy or a partner want to recreate that famous Titanic scene, knock yourselves out, you could use this and have it feel real. That would be awesome. Or not. All right, guys, that is it for Monday. As always, hope you guys are having a good one. Cheers.